the Experience Darden podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Jack Collins. Jack is a second-year student in our full-time MBA class of 2026, and he and I recently connected to talk more about his background, his decision to pursue an MBA, what led him to Darden, his interest in CPG, how his experience has gone thus far, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. And as always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to the Experience Darden podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Jack Collins. Jack, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to chatting and answering some questions.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. How are you doing? How's everything?
Doing well. We got finally a nice fall day here in Charlottesville. I feel like it's been summer since I've been here, so it's nice to finally have some cold air some cold air out there.
Yeah, I'm normally in the DC area. I work out at the space up in Roslyn, and so down here in Charlottesville for part of this week, and walked out of the hotel this morning, and it was crisp outside. I was like, oh, I guess it is officially fall, right? We are in the fall season. We've had the autumnal equinox, but today was really the first day that felt like fall in the morning.
Yeah,
so
it's about time.
Peak season here in Charlottesville, for sure.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
All right. Well, Jack, let's talk a little bit more about you. Tell us who you are and your background.
Definitely. Yeah, happy to. So my name is Jack Collins. I'm a second year MBA student here at Darden, pursuing a career in consumer goods, brand management. A little bit about me. I'm originally from the Philadelphia suburbs, but spent the last 8 years before business school in the Midwest. So call myself kind of a Midwesterner now. I'm married to my wife's from Cincinnati, so now I'm officially a Midwesterner, but went to undergrad in Ohio at Miami University, studied finance and accounting there. And then before Darden was working in Chicago. Was calling Chicago home for the last 4 years and most likely going back there. Spent the majority of my time in Chicago working in consulting. So I was doing M&A consulting, pretty heavy quantitative. So I was working with private equity firms, helping them diligence their potential acquisitions. Learned a lot. Definitely very analytical, quantitative, financial, which I did enjoy a lot. But then also spent some time in Chicago working kind of polar opposite, worked for a overnight oats startup. They were on Shark Tank. They're called Mush. So fell in love with the CPG space through that. Really enjoyed that experience. So that's a little bit about my professional background, a little bit about me personally. Like I mentioned, I married, so I came to Charlottesville with my wife, which has been awesome to have the opportunity to experience these 2 years with her. So really been a great community so far. And then outside of work and school, I love to cook. So I grew up in an Italian-American family, learned how to cook at a young age, and that's always been my biggest passion. I considered going down that career professionally. I worked as a line cook in Chicago for a little bit. It's always been my favorite thing to do. So although I decided to not go through that grueling career, it's definitely shaped some of my future professional aspirations, even though I'm not going to be behind a stove most likely.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. Chicago, there's so many CPG brands that
I
call
know.
Chicago home, so it's a bit of a
hub, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for sharing your story with us. How did you get interested in pursuing an MBA?
Yeah, I think from a high level, I've always kind of been interested in it. I can speak on this in a little bit more detail later, but I've had some family members that have pursued their MBA and have just heard them speak very highly of not only the value and the education, but just the whole experience, meeting people, just trying something new. So I've always kind of been interested in that. But then from more of a logistical standpoint, for my personal experience, I mentioned it, but worked in consulting, enjoyed aspects of it and got some great skills, but started to realize that I didn't want to just consult for companies. I would love to leverage those skills and experiences on the inside of an actual company, and preferably a company that I was personally, engaged in, interested in, and passionate about, like food and beverage. And then for me, kind of had the lucky experience of getting some exposure to that before consulting. So I mentioned I worked at a food and beverage startup in Chicago, fell in love with that space, really enjoyed, kind of seeing what is out there besides consulting, and was doing some reflecting after about 2 years in consulting, and kind of the light bulb started to go off in my head that, hey, maybe a career in consumer goods brand management would be a great way to kind of bridge those two experiences and, take those skills that I liked about consulting, but do it in an environment that I could really see myself working in for the next, 20 years. And that kind of made me realize that the easiest way to get into that, or not the easiest, but the best way to get into brand management would be through an MBA. So I would say the initial push for me to get an MBA was the goal to become a CPG brand manager, and have experienced a lot of other great things with my MBA along the way. But that's been my initial push. So I'm very happy that I made the decision.
And you mentioned you were in the Midwest. How did you learn about Darden? How did you get interested in Darden?
Yeah, I would like to say that it was solely my personal discovery and my exploration, but I'd be lying. So I've been lucky enough to have three immediate family members come to Darden within the last, I think, 5 years. So my older brother graduated in 2021, and then my sister and her wife, my brother-in-law, uh, both came to Darden together. They were students at the same time and graduated in 2024. So had kind of just had the chance to visit them throughout the years, fell in love with Charlottesville, and then also got to hear how highly they spoke of the school. So I would say that's kind of what sparked my interest at first. But I did go through the diligence of myself, and kind of I was pursuing other business schools as well. And I think when I boil down kind of what pushed me to Darden, I would say there's kind of three factors that I was looking at for each of the schools, but what stood out for Darden first was academics. So I was thinking, if I'm going to pause 2 years of my career, I wanted to go somewhere where I could actually get value in the classroom, and kind of be stimulated for 2 years. And I knew personally that I had some things that I wanted to improve on as a professional, whether that's speaking, articulation while under pressure, communication skills under pressure, and the case method was what really attracted me of being forced to do that. I think if I went to a school that didn't have the case method, I could have graduated in 2 years as the same person without being forced to develop those skills. So the academics was great. That's what really kind of got me excited. Say the other great thing would be the community aspect. So not only was I moving to pursue this, but I was moving my wife to pursue an MBA. So I wanted to find somewhere where we could go and really enjoy the 2 years. And I think it's pretty unique. There's not a lot of schools where I would say 99% of my classmates did the exact same thing, where they uprooted their lives, moved to a new town of Charlottesville. And I think that forces you, whether you like it or not, to really say I'm gonna go to this event, or I'm gonna make new friends because you have to. And I think that's awesome. And I would say the last thing about Darden was the professional aspect, the professional pillar of an MBA. And transparently, this was kind of the only non 100% slam dunk for me. I would, Darden, as we know, is incredible with professional placement and recruiting, specifically with investment banking and consulting and other careers. But I knew that consumer goods at Darden was a little bit just a less traveled path. Not that it was less supported, just less students go towards that. And transparently, there were other programs that I was looking at that have a higher percentage of their students going into that. But I knew there was a great network of ex Darden alumni or Darden alumni in that field that I could leverage, and I was willing to spend the extra X amount of hours a week of putting in a little bit more personal investment to kind of build out that pillar of my decision. And super happy that I did. It all worked out. So I think those three things really stood out to me about Darden. I think it's definitely a special place, and I'd be tough to find another business school that has all three of those that they do so well.
Yeah, I appreciate those notes. So much of what you shared really resonates with other conversations we've had here. It feels like everybody who comes on the podcast does cite the academic experience as something that really led them to Darden. Recognizing that it's challenging, but that's where the growth is.
Yeah,
People wanting to be pushed, and if you're going to take 2 years off, wanting to get as much out of the experience as they can. Certainly the community, I think Charlottesville is a big part of that story. To your point,
yeah,
everybody has to pick up and move here. We don't really have a lot of students who are based in Charlottesville. Maybe a few, but not
yeah,
many.
yeah,
Yeah, and then there's so much to do here beyond, what's happening around the school, but the school does really function as a social hub for students, and the career piece that, I think everybody's got to do their due diligence on that. You want to be at a place where you feel like you're going to be supported both, by the career staff and current students as well as alumni, and feel like there's a good path for you. So all of that certainly resonates. So you come to Darden, Jack. You're a brand new first year student. I recognize that was about a year ago, but what
yeah,
was that adjustment like for you?
yeah. Good question. I can't believe it's been a year. I needed to slow down, but I'd say there's a bit of an adjustment. Just transitioning back from corporate America back to the academic setting, as you would expect. But I would say that having the luxury of studying finance and accounting at a business school in undergrad, and then coming from a quote unquote traditional business background before Darden, I would say the curriculum itself, a ton of value, learned a ton. I would say the adjustment wasn't huge there. I would say the adjustment was big for me on more of the time management, managing your schedule. You've got a million different things going on, and pretty quickly at Darden, you're told over and over again to to the extent of you've heard it a million times, but you get three balls at Darden. You can only juggle two each week, whether it's academics, recruiting, or social. And for the most part, I agree on that. There's some weeks that you can't do all three, and I think it really forces you to prioritize certain things and be an effective and efficient user of your time. And I think that's a great skill that I had to make some adjustments to. And yeah, just really working on maximizing your time and really being efficient with your time, I think, is the biggest adjustment. I would say that my wife convinced me to get a puppy this year, and I'm glad we did it after first year because of the time management piece of the puzzle. I could not have done that last year, just with so much going on. But yeah, there was definitely an adjustment, but it was a good adjustment.
Yeah, I feel like that's, part of the challenge for folks. You come from a working world where you have work, but then the rest of the time is really your own. And so once work is done, you kind of figure out whatever you want to do. And all of a sudden you're in business school where there's seemingly everything sort of demanding your time. You have schoolwork, you have career, you have social. You want to get to know your classmates. You obviously want to work on your career goals. You want to be ready for class. And so you have to figure out how all these things can coexist. And I guess certain weeks, some of those things are more important than others, right? To your point about juggling a couple balls. Yeah, it sounds like your career goals stayed pretty constant. Like you came in, you knew you wanted to do CPG. It sounds like you're still interested in CPG.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a blessing so far. I mean, that was the not the sole reason, but the real reason that drove me to pursue an MBA was because I wanted to break into consumer goods and do brand management. And I think, I've been lucky that I was successful throughout the process of recruiting last year and landed a great internship in a field that I was interested in a city that I was familiar with at a great company. And I'm planning on returning back to that same field. So thankfully, I have not had to waver, and have really enjoyed kind of all the aspects of brand management that I was hoping to.
Yeah, what do you like about CPG? What's interesting to you about it? You mentioned you got that startup experience
Yeah.
with the overnight oats company, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think I could have a whole conversation about this, but I think what first initially excited me is like the fact that I could be working on a project that I'm personally inherently interested in. So first and foremost, food and beverage, like that's where my personal interests lie. And I know throughout, just by reflecting on myself, I'm a much better worker, much more effective worker when I have personal interests behind what I'm working on. So that excited me. But just to work on a project and then, go into the grocery store and see, oh, I helped launch that innovation, or I designed that new package, or, I decided to do a collaboration with this brand. I think that really excites me, that tangible impact. Um, like a quick funny story, but my dad actually started his career in consumer goods working at Campbell's, and he helped launch a product called V8 Splash. And I still remember as like a second grader packing a V8 Splash in my lunchbox every day. I don't know. I was probably shouldn't have been drinking them, but walking into the lunchroom and showing it off to all my friends, and like, yeah, being able to say that my dad invented this, which invent is a loose term, but having the real tangible tie to a product, I think really excited me initially about CPG. And you just get a bunch of great experiences. You're not just a marketer. You're not just in finance. You're really running these brands like it's a business.
It's interesting to hear you share the stories because it really resonates with some of the conversations that I've had with part-time MBA, executive MBA students who work at Nestle. You may know that they have a headquarters up in Arlington, Virginia, and they say the same thing. It's like to be able to see your product on the shelves and know that you were instrumental in getting it there or helping to develop that product that people are enjoying or that maybe even you get to enjoy. It's a cool thing. You can't say that about many particular
Yeah,
paths here.
definitely. Yeah, funny enough, my dad started his post business school career at Nestle and before business school, so very familiar with the Nestle's and the Campbells of the world. So
Yeah. So now you're in second year. It sounds like you've got a puppy. How is second year going? Maybe have a little bit more time than you had in first year.
yeah, definitely a little bit more time. It's been good. I've enjoyed it. Yeah, not as time commitment, I would say, is a little bit less this quarter for me. I think I planned that with just knowing what was going on personally, but excited to take some more specific classes that are of interest to me. pertaining to what I'm hoping to go into after graduation. But second year's been great. Yeah, more time to connect with friends, catch up after a summer apart from everybody. But yeah, the classes are great, and looking forward to the next 3 quarters, and hopefully they go as slow as possible.
Can you tell us a little bit about the classes you're taking? I know that can be hard to answer sometimes on the spot, but maybe a class or two that stand out?
Yeah, I'm in this class right now. One I'll tell you, it's called Telling Financial Stories. It's kind of a mix between communications, presentation, but also there's an analytical aspect of it. And I liked it because it's really it. There's been opportunities to be forced to get up there, get outside of your comfort zone, and just present. Whether it's the last class we've been doing impromptu speaking, so you get a topic that you don't know anything about, and you got to get up there and talk for 60 seconds. And I can tell you with 100% certainty that if you told me to do that 2 years ago, I would have told you like I don't want to come to Darden. I hate public speaking. I get really anxious about talking in front of groups, and I think over the last 2 years, I've seen that angst that definitely dissipate, and it's a great kind of skill to continue to practice, and I've really enjoyed that. We've got a great professor there, and then looking forward to there's another course I'm taking Q3 called Marketing and Society. So it's just hot topics in marketing. What are companies doing that are going well or going poorly? So looking forward to that.
Yeah, those hot topic classes, I'm always really intrigued by them because sometimes you even have outside speakers that join for them as part of the discussion. So you get to hear somebody who's like working in industry dealing with one of these hot topics right now. Are there clubs and organizations that you've been involved with or that are meaningful to you as you kind of move into the second year? It's oftentimes a period in the Darden student's life where they start to take on some leadership responsibility too.
Yeah, so this year I'm on the board of the MGM Club, which is Marketing and General Management. It's the career club associated with, as you'd expect, marketing and general management careers. So I'm the VP of recruiting, so helping first years navigate the recruiting process, whether that's interview prep, networking prep, or just kind of being a sounding board. And I had a great mentor as a second year last year who helped me kind of go through that process. I wanted to pay it forward. And then last year, and we'll be involved this year as well, I participated in Community Consultants of Darden, which is just you're working on pro bono consulting projects for organizations or small businesses in the Charlottesville area. So last year we did a project for the University of Virginia's athletic department, which was really interesting. Some other groups did projects for bakeries or retail companies, wedding planners. So going to be a second year kind of advisor for the first years that engage in that this year. And then not on the board, but I'm a active participant of the Wine and Cuisine Club. It's great to go visit all the vineyards around Charlottesville, and just another great community club to join.
And we had one of your classmates on here recently, and he said, he always has intention to maybe just join one or two clubs, and the next thing you know, like you're going through the process, and somehow you've joined five, six, seven
Yeah,
plus clubs. There's so many that are of interest. I mean,
exactly.
there's over 50 of them, so it's not hard to do.
It's dangerous when you have that website up and you can just click add to cart, and yeah, next thing you know, you're in 10 clubs.
Yeah, and that's right. So the clubs have dues that are associated with them to help support some of the programming. Uh, I'm curious, Jack. You mentioned working with the MGM club. Part of your job search. One of the questions we get a lot from prospective students are how do current students support each other through the job search process. Whether it's first years helping other first years, second years helping first years. Obviously, there's second year coaches too as part of this. But how did the club? How did your classmates? How did other students help you with your job search?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think there's probably a mix of formal helping and informal helping. So like you mentioned, second year coaching. So I'm a second year coach this year where you get formally paired up with a handful of first years that are interested in pursuing the same career path that you pursued. And you are their right hand guy to answer any questions. How do I set up a coffee chat? How do I network with somebody? What company should I look at? And then more detailed prep of, hey, can you help me review my resume? Can we do a mock interview? And that's great, just immediate structured help that I had last year as a first year, who I had a second year coach who was great. She was going into brand management, and kind of you can ask anything to that person. So that's formal. There's other informal mentorship programs that you can kind of just take up on yourself. So I just found a second year who had an internship that I was interested in, and became, had a great relationship with her, and had an even stronger relationship than my second year coach, just asking questions that was a little bit more informal. And then, like you mentioned, yeah, there's the career club, so there's people on the board that are helping with that. And I think another informal one that stood out to me is I just found somebody, a fellow first year last year, that we're applying to every single of the same jobs. We both want to do CPG brand management. She wanted to do more. I wanted to do more food and beverage. She wanted to do non-food and beverage. So there wasn't a whole lot of competition, which was good. But we just help each other interview prep, did case interviews, did resume reviews, and it was great to have somebody else kind of to bounce ideas off and kind of being each other's court. So a mix of informal and formal, it's been great.
Yeah, the one that always impresses me is when people who are interested maybe in the same jobs or the same career path are helping each other. Because you could imagine that could be pretty competitive in
Yeah,
some places, but that's not the case here.
yeah, it's been good. I think one of the benefits. I mean, I've seen this even with the bigger populated careers of banking and consulting, but one of the benefits of general management marketing is fewer students on a percentage basis that go into these, and it's really kind of you form a tight knit, close group, and everyone wants to see each other succeed. And I know that's for the same for even banking and consulting as well.
You mentioned you're hopeful that your second year goes slowly. Are there things that you're looking forward to here in your second year?
Yeah, I would say I'm looking forward to a whole lot of nothing, of kind of just relaxing and catching up with friends and enjoying the time in Charlottesville. Love Chicago, loved being in the city, and was back there this summer. But it's always a nice breath of fresh air to be in the quote unquote country of Charlottesville and not be in the big city. It's relaxing. So just spending time with friends, exploring. And then in the spring, I'm participating in the DWC in South Korea. So going with some friends over to South Korea for the course, going to make a trip out of that and hopefully see Japan as well. So I've always wanted to get out to Asia. So looking forward to that. So yeah, before that, before the big travels, just hanging out, soaking up the last handful of months here in Charlottesville.
Do you know what you're going to do on that DWC yet? Have they told you any sort of high level thing?
So we're going to Seoul and Busan. That's basically all they've kind of given us. It's a new trip this year with a new professor leading it, who was great, Nina. She's our operations core professor. So besides that, I think they're still trying to iron out some of the details. But I would assume company visits, cultural excursions. I'm personally excited for the food scene of trying restaurants out. But yeah, I think a lot of great company visits, talks with alumni in the area, and then time for exploration of the cities.
Well, Jack, one more question for you. We'll wrap up. What's a piece of advice you would share with our listeners, something you would encourage them to think about as they consider their own MBA journeys?
Yeah, it's a great question. I was doing some thinking on kind of what would stand out to me to get as advice. I mentioned those kind of three pillars that drove me to Darden of academic, community, and professional. I think it's always helpful to just do some self-reflecting and see where your personal priorities lie, where you want to put more weight on, and let that help you make your decision of what program to pursue. I think a great school like Darden, which was what I found, is they're excellent in each of those, which really made the decision easier for me. But really, just where do you put your importance on those three pillars, and then find the program that supports them. I think Darden was the answer for me, and many of my friends saw that as well. And I think on a very tactical level, what made the process easier for me was I really found a lot of benefit of visiting schools in person. I think it made my decision extremely easy. And then sitting in on classes to further that, really like sitting on, I can still remember I sat in on Kim Whitler's marketing class. I was like, oh, I could 100% do this for 2 years and go to these classes. This is exciting. And then just chatting with current students, I think all of those three, from a tactical standpoint, made my decision making process of. I remember, visiting Darden, visiting another school, and just being okay. I'm 100% confident with my decision because I was there in person. I think that was really beneficial. If you can make that work, I would highly recommend that.
Yeah, I think schools seem very similar to one another when you just look at the website. I mean, we're all talking
Yeah,
about the same things, right? Academic experience, community, incredible faculty, impressive career outcomes. But the experience of being a student there becomes a lot more vivid once you spend time, on grounds or on campus. You actually sit in a classroom, see how people are learning. That is an important point of differentiation. Certainly here
yeah,
at Darden, because the case
definitely.
method
Yeah.
But I would also say like just the vibe of the place, just your
Yeah.
gut feel of like how people are relating to each other. People seem to be enjoying themselves, and that matters too. I know it's a big decision, and talking about something like sort of the gut feel or a sort of a vibe may sound too sort of, I don't know, evanescent, not sturdy enough, not data driven enough for people, but it's the kind of stuff that ultimately leads people one way or the other as they make their MBA decision.
Definitely, 100% agree with that, and just made me remember one of the tactical piece was don't be afraid of the case method. I think it's one of the biggest benefits of Darden. So if I was speaking to prospective students, and I had this conversation before, I think it's probably the most beneficial aspect of my time at Darden. Really positively forced me outside my comfort zone.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions about it from prospective students. I think when people look out there on the internet or ask people, I mean, Darden has a reputation for being academically challenging, and I think a lot of that does come back to the case method and sort of the expectation here, the fact that you're going to have to show up ready, prepared to participate in class. Jack, I assume that's something that students get better with as they go through the first year in particular, right? Where you start
Oh
is
yeah,
not where you end in that process.
definitely. I remember raising my hand, having the right answer in my head, speaking out loud, realizing I was like so stressed about speaking, and I said the completely wrong answer. And just because you need to practice, and it's good, you need that pressure. And then after Q1, you get better in Q2, and now Q3, Q4 comes around, second year comes around, and it's much easier. But it's a great muscle to flex, and you don't get many opportunities to do that besides in the case method.
And one of the things I've heard from students in the past, I wonder if this resonates with you, is they really have a appreciation for what they've done in the first year when they get to their summer internship and what they're asked to do and the ability to contribute and speak up and have a perspective quickly and process a lot of information. Um, does that resonate with you?
Definitely, I think there's yeah, having spent the last 4 quarters of coursework, constantly having to be prepared, dealing with analysis, taking a stance, defending your stance, understanding when it's wrong, understanding when to dive deeper. It's just a great skill that you're, whether you realize it or not, are developing over the first 4 quarters. And then I think those are all skills that every manager wants to see from their intern, of just someone that can, make a decision and work hard. I think that's what the case method really helps with.
Well, Jack, thank you so much for your time. It was great connecting with you and best of luck in your second year.
Thanks so much. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thanks so much for the time as well.
And that was my conversation with Jack Collins, a second year student in our full-time MBA class of 2026. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at Darden, that's DARDEN, @virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.